we're talking about the bylaws tonight, more specifically about the bylaws as they relate to the budget, the finance committee, and the
This conference will now be recorded.
Sorry. Okay.
Joe, Bob, and I got involved in the writing of some of these pieces. So we've got a lot of issues already worked out. There are still a few that have to be addressed, I think. One of them comes actually on. Do you have a copy of the budget from the website, or a hard copy?
You mean the bylaws?
Bylaws, I'm sorry.
I downloaded and I have a hard copy of what from the link that you sent me last week.
Okay.
So if that's the correct
Okay.
copy, then I have. Okay.
All right. On page 9.
Okay. So this reflects all new language?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
On page 9, the bottom article number 12, subarticle number 12, this is actually in the town administrator site. It reads that prepare a balanced budget and submit to the select board for approval. And that the phrase for approval, I think, has to be omitted from there, because later on, during the whole description of what happens during the budget process and how things go to town meeting, it's clear that what's supposed to happen is that the town administrator works up a budget. And then the town administrator gives that budget to the finance committee and to the select board. But the town administrator doesn't need the approval of either body to have that budget be the one that's presented at town meeting. Instead, the select board and the finance committee each look at it. And if they have any disagreements with what the town administrator has recommended for the budget, then they will be allowed to put in the town booklet right at the same point where the budget is presented, any recommendations that they have which are different from what the town administrator has as budget. So it's not subject to the approval of.
Okay, so should we amend approval to the word review?
No, just it submits it to the select board and the finance committee so as to enable them to make
Or
recommendations.
review instead of approval?
Excuse me?
I said, if you look at 12 on the, so do you have the beginning? It says be the budget officer for the town.
Right, which sort of eliminates the words for approval.
Okay, okay. So where I saw submit it to the select board for approval, why isn't the word approval amended to review? Then it's totally clear. We have to review it. They're submitting it for review, but it doesn't require approval. I don't know.
Continue reading the article. Continue to read the last couple lines.
Okay, so prepare a balanced budget and submit it to the select board for approval and the finance committee prior to the annual town meeting, so as to enable them to make recommendations about the budget in the town meeting booklet and at the town meeting.
Yeah.
So I would just say, prepare a balanced budget and submit it to the select board and the finance committee prior to the annual town meeting for approval.
No.
So as to enable them to make recommendations about
No.
the budget.
There's no approval needed in this clause.
I know, I'm eliminating the word approval and replacing it with the word review.
Yeah, we don't need a review either. That's up to the board. That's up to the select board and up to the finance committee.
Okay, so what you're saying is this whole thing should be struck?
No,
What?
just the words approval. It's important that it's in here that the town administrator develop a budget and then give that recommended budget to the select board and then to the finance committee. Then each of the select board and the finance committee are then able, if they want, to make a recommendation on any budget item that's different from the one that the town administrator has made. But that's not approval.
Right. And
No
it's not review, then what is it? If it's not
Oh.
approval and it's not review, then what is it?
I'll walk down the road between the two of you.
Go ahead. I'm gonna get
It-
my
it- It's
thesaurus.
for review, and it's the only thing it could be is for review. So if you just don't use the word review, that's obviously what's gonna happen.
Well, that's what I said we should do, but John says it's technically, he doesn't have to submit it for review either, so, anyway.
Not
Anyway.
to no, for them to, for each of those boards to, or the committee and the board to review.
Right.
Not review in the sense of agreeing with it or anything of that nature.
Correct. Review it so as to enable them to make recommendations about the budget in the town meeting. I'm just saying, if you go with prepare a balanced budget and submit it to the select board and the finance committee prior to the annual town meeting for review, comma, so as
Here-
to
here's
enable
why-
them
here's
to
why I
make
don't-
recommendations about the budget. Because then you're coming up and you're saying, and the reason you're getting it for review is so that we can make recommendations about the budget and it can be included in the town booklet and the town meeting. Anyway,
Joe, we don't have to review it, don't have to even look at it, could use it as a
Okay.
starting point. The whole point is that those other two committees, the committee of the finance committee and the select board, have the opportunity to submit their own budget. If it is different from, if it is different from the budget that's used by the town administrator, they want to wait till after they develop a budget that they think, and then look to see whether it differs.
okay, then what you're saying is we eliminate for approval, we eliminate for review. And we just say prepare a balanced budget and submit it to the select board and the finance committee prior to the annual town meeting, so as to enable them to make recommendations about the budget in the town meeting booklet and at town meeting. And if we just throw out the phrase for approval,
Right,
it all works, right?
that's what I'm suggesting.
Okay. Sorry it took me so long to figure it out.
Actually, if you want to go a little further, you can get rid of the words prior to the annual town meeting.
Well,
You've got a timeline in there
yeah,
when
but
you've
you
got.
wanna, okay, but you wanna set a, maybe, okay, 30 days prior to the annual town meeting, 45 days?
Oh, you've got a time in there now. It
Okay.
says, so they can make recommendations to put in the town meeting booklet,
Yeah. Okay,
which is gonna be prior to the town meeting, the word could mean only one day. This is gonna be a little longer than that.
so what do you wanna do, Bob? What do you recommend?
I would recommend just getting rid of the words prior to the annual town meeting.
Okay. What do you think, John? I'm fine with that.
Yeah, that's not needed in there. Let's see if the implication is that they're going to make recommendations in the town meeting booklet. And it's clearly got to be at least a week before the town meeting. But is there anything that's needed to say this really should be done within a couple of days after completing the budget?
I'm just saying, how many days, don't we need 6 weeks before town meeting in order to fully vet it and have time to write? Or what do we need, 2 weeks or 3 weeks? I don't know, John, I remember when I was on the committee, you always wrote the letter,
He still does, Joe.
Yeah,
Well, I figured that.
And
That's
he's
why
not getting out of it.
Nobody else wants to write. And, when you're chairman, you got to do all that extra work. I know.
yeah,
I'm on the house. Okay, go ahead.
that's a bit of a different issue because we had a printing deadline of about 3 weeks before the town meeting. That printing deadline doesn't exist this year because the whole process is being done differently.
Okay.
They'll just print themselves enough copies to satisfy the bylaws of having copies ready before the meeting, but it's not going to be 3 weeks before.
Okay.
So that's a different issue. The issue here is that for us to do an appropriate examination of it and develop a budget, we need a few weeks because we, for example, have the authority, if we want, to have anyone who submits a budget actually come to us and tell us about the budget. So that whole process takes a while. It hasn't been needed since we switched to this new system. It works much more, the whole system works much more efficiently. But then the issue might be, should there be something in here that says that this should be done, 6 weeks before town meeting, 2 months before town meeting? Really ought to be, if the budget is done in February, it really ought to be submitted in February to the Finance Committee and the Select Board. And submit to the Select Board and the Finance Committee.
Well, I think at least by April 1st, because we're always looking at a town meeting like the first week of June. So that's 2 months ahead of time. That's not unreasonable.
Well, I
But
think,
John, just going back, under the budget schedule, in the part that paragraph that's there,
What page is that?
11.
11? Okay, I'm
It
there.
said, the TA shall publish and produce a budget calendar. The schedule shall allow for the finalization of the budget in time to include appropriation detail in the town meeting warrant and the town meeting booklet. You might interpret that to mean that you got to get it out to everybody
Mhm.
on a reasonable time basis, but that the schedule must allow for that.
Mhm.
what if we just put in the phrase within a week? Or within 5 business days?
Of town meeting?
No, after the balanced budget.
Okay, okay.
So
Okay.
we prepare a balanced budget and submit to the Select Board and the Finance Committee within 5 business days.
And normally, when does that occur, John?
Well, this year it was what, April 20th?
Okay, well, then we're close. I mean, I thought a date of April 1st. I mean, I'm trying to
No,
get.
we got
to
it, we got it more like on the 6th of April, John, or the
Yeah.
7th or 8th, something like
Yeah.
that.
Okay,
Yeah, and so, it's never been a problem. It's never been really
okay,
specific.
then that's fine.
But,
Well, not that it's a problem, but it's a bylaw, so you need
Yeah.
to be specific and clear, so.
Yeah, there's later on, we've allowed for a lot of leeway in the budget schedule itself. We'll tell you what we're thinking about doing there. But it was just something so that it's not viewed as okay to submit it to these committees 1 day before the recommendations are due, so it can put into town schedule.
Okay. Well, I don't have a problem with that language, so I'm fine with it.
Okay. I'll go to page 11.
Okay,
In the current bylaws, kind of an example budget schedule has been written down. And it has been adhered to in spirit, but not necessarily by the letter of what's in there. And we talked at great length about that to the bylaw review committee. And so they suggested that, we had a look at the thing that's in there now, which is to suggest that this might be kind of like almost a template for a schedule. But what we think is that there's really no need to put a template in here. That we can put some wording into the bylaw itself that will say that the calendar for the particular fiscal year that we'll be doing the budget for should be developed by the town administrator and sent out to all the affected parties early in the process. And there's some specific language to do that. And then don't reference this as an example of what the budget schedule should be. The reason is that there are too many things which are just plain out wrong in this to be used as what somebody might think of as a model for what the budget schedule should be. Whereas the budget process is well understood by everybody involved. And it's not a big deal to put together a better template with fewer specifics that covers what is happening and makes it clear as to who is supposed to be doing what when. But it certainly allows for more leeway in times like the pandemic, which should have taught us a lot about preparing for some emergencies of some kinds. So I think what we want to do is suggest that in the section 2 budget schedule, that the first line of that should read, the town administrator shall prepare and present a budget calendar before November 1st to all the to all the affected departments and committees. And then just eliminate the line, the budget calendar might be similar to the example below, and then just eliminate that whole budget calendar example. And I think that'll take care of it more than adequately for what needs to be done and has always been done, as a matter of fact, in the budget process. This was originally done because when we first switched to the town administrator form of government, there are a lot of things that weren't clear about how the old processes and new processes and the old authorities and new authorities carried over. So it was very helpful to have some kind of examples written out in the bylaws, but they're really not needed.
Okay. I don't have a problem with that because I got to page 12 in reading through this and I said, okay, we're changing all this language. And so why do we have March? Finance Committee reviews and asks for clarification, departmental budgets as necessary. April, Finance Committee finalizes its budget. And none of those things are true anymore because it's all driven by the town administrator. And I guess we could say we're finalizing our budget, but it would imply that we're driving the budget decision when in fact we're either agreeing with it or we're recommending something else. So,
well, actually, that's another one of those things that the idea behind that has always been at work, but the practicalities of it are that as a town, or at least as the part of the whole financial groups of the town, we've all agreed in past years that there's no point in thinking we have a final budget before we have some final figures on income, which is basically amounting to what the state is liable to give us in state aid and school aid and so forth. So that you can't really say your budget is final if you only know how much you want to spend and you have no idea how much income you're going to have. So that's another reason just to take that out in case we continue to practice. Now, it doesn't have to be that way. In some towns, for example, will have their budget ready for the next fiscal year in the February, March timeframe. They'll have an annual meeting, February, March timeframe, and they'll proclaim this is our budget for the next fiscal year. Almost inevitably, that means they'll have to come back later that year and amend what they passed, because the most likely thing that has happened is that the legislator has come to a different conclusion about what they're passing on in state and school aid than what you have available to you in January.
okay. Is there some place, is it under town administrator where a list of all the departments that are overseen by the town administrator
No, instead, there are a number of departments that are named and a number of positions that are named, but it's the languages that that can be changed with additions or subtraction by the select board. The specific duties of the town administrator are, most of them are ultimately left to the select board. So you wouldn't want to put. Okay.
Okay. So what else do we want to change?
Well, I think that's about it for the finance committee and the budget. I'm gonna look them over again. And I encourage you, you both to look them over again and see if we have anything else. And I didn't know if you had any questions. It sounded like you might have had a question or two from the last meeting we had. But I don't know if you had a chance to actually dig into the wording of the bylaws on the.
Are you talking about me?
Yes.
Yes. No, I read the entire bylaws.
Okay, great.
I read the entire bylaws. So the only other area that I was sort of looking to bring in alignment, I hadn't notated page 11, but certainly on page 12 and stuff, is that when we look at the finance committee, I guess all of this has been rewritten because based on our conversation last time and what was said, I think was it Rich or whoever was reading from it. I mean, everything jives here with the intent to just clarify everything as the town administrator's position versus our position as the arbiter of the budget. So.
Yeah, I think it was basically done well.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really see any issues with any of the language because in the context of what is being proposed, obviously it all meshed with that, so. Okay. I mean, the only question that I would say, John, is that do we have a financial model?
No, we've got to develop one.
Okay, because right there, that's one thing that we haven't really done. It seems like the shift, as you said from the last meeting in terms of language, is much more, does the finance committee, what financial path does the finance committee believe in?
Yeah,
I guess that would be raising taxes or cutting services or any number of things. So I don't know. So
there's been a lot of conversation about it for quite some time. It really takes finance committee, town administrator, probably the town treasurer, maybe a few people to sit down and think about at least the original plan. Tinkering with it as the years go by is a different question, but at least the original plan. But it's never been overly important, and it's never been easy to try to find the time for those people to get together for this. But now that it's in the bylaws, I'm sure we'll find a way to get the appropriate people together to do this. And it's examples that I've seen in some other towns. It's actually a good thing to have the town be aware and to formally approve that this basically is how we see the financial progress of the town moving. Closest we came that anything I was involved with was quite a few years ago, probably a decade now. We had a group of people who looked at the capital needs of the town, and which is basically for the rolling stock and a few buildings, but it included the library and schools and things like that. And we put together a 5-year plan for capital, replacing the rolling equipment, everything else like that. And it was presented to the town, and that worked out real well. That turned out to be the basic plan for those 5 years and even longer than that. With some exceptions, there's something changed, but it really kind of laid out the picture, and we could always go back and refer to that as items came up in following years that, should we really be replacing this truck now? Well, yeah, remember we looked at it 5 years ago and we projected out this and projected out that, and it really is time to do that. So I think it's a good idea. It's going to take some work.
Well, I think the spreadsheet about discretionary, non-discretionary is the starting point. I mean,
That's
I
something-
mean, this is good data because in one sense, you've laid out sort of a partial roadmap. Certainly, you've a conceptual way of thinking about the budget that then would need to be tied to your financial options. So,
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I know that the town doesn't know about how to think along those lines, because it's never really been an issue before. But when we started having conversations about who has the authority to do what, I began to realize that it's not so much a question of who has the authority as who thinks he or she has the authority to do what. A lot of things people think they have the authority for are really, it's really not an authority, but there are some state mandates that certain things have to be done. And so it doesn't make any difference whether it's where the authority vests in someone from the financial community or an elected official or an administrator. Whoever supposedly has the authority over that has to do that. So I think that then helps focus the energy of the thought on the issues that make a difference rather than the things which it really doesn't make any difference whether you argue about this or not. This is the way it's got to be.
okay, good.
I got some questions on some other things about bylaws, including the very first one. Very first one says the annual town meeting date. The annual town meeting for the transaction of business shall be held on the second and fourth, if needed, Tuesday in May. Current bylaws call for just one day. Town meeting begins on, I think it's the second Tuesday in May.
But it says and fourth if needed.
Yeah, that was added. Now,
Oh,
I'm told that the reason that was added was that the schools felt that the town ought to have the budgets done by the end of May, particularly the school budget, ought to have the school budget done by the end of May, so that if they had to send out pink slips, they would be able to do that on a more reasonable basis than the way they're able to do it now. I don't think that that this adds, though, anything at all to what we have right now. Right now, it's clear that it's been years and years and years since our town meeting took place on just one day. There's always been at least a second day. And that second day has been decided based upon what's happening in that year. There are years when there are certainly enough pieces of information about the finances, both expenditures and particularly income, that you can have a meeting fairly soon after the first day. There are years, and that's been most years, when in particular the income item is completely unknown or unknown within maybe $100,000 or so. And so that you would prefer to wait until you actually got a reasonably believed income figure before you set the budget. And that's pushed the budget a little further off into the season. But at any rate, the authority to do that is there now, as well as the authority to not have a meeting. The fact that it says in the bylaws that the annual town meeting shall be on the Tuesday in May, as it does now, does not mean, for example, that this year or last year, the annual meeting was held on the first Tuesday in May. There are circumstances that arise that means that you would be best served if you changed that day, and everyone agreed and the day was changed. The same thing's going to happen here. You need no more authority than exists right now by setting one meeting date than you have right now. You have complete authority to do anything you want or anything you need to do, but you have the ability to do it in any time frame that seems reasonable. So I think that the second date just ought to be eliminated. It's worthless. It's an extraneous piece of writing. So I'm going to suggest that, I think.
Wouldn't it be better to just have a meeting shall be held no later than like.
No,
the
I think
third
it's
Tuesday
fine.
in June
It's
as a-
fine
You
for
know,
the first-
because you got the date there and, you know, there's no way, I don't even remember the last time it was we had a second Tuesday in May meeting.
No, that's new. The fourth Tuesday, the second date is never been in.
Right. But since you're always making adjustments because the printing isn't done or things have moved slower than what you thought, the State House, their budget issues are out there and there's some uncertainty. I'm just saying we need to have the new budget in place before the beginning of the next fiscal year. So if you say like the third Tuesday, no later than the third Tuesday in June. And like I said, you don't have to address, if you need more than one meeting, then you're going to have more than one meeting. So anyway,
There might be some requirement that you have to set a specific date,
okay,
even though you have the authority to switch it.
okay,
Yeah, I think you're better off, in general, you're better off because that broad feeling that, all right, here's the kind of timeframes we're moving in, I think gives people some assurance that, and gives people some target.
okay,
And
here-
also, there's so many things that take place in the annual meeting that are not budget items, including some of the warrant articles, which are money items, but technically not budget items, that you certainly have more than enough to accomplish by the second Tuesday in May.
okay. So let me play devil's advocate on this phrase on cutting it back to the second Tuesday, only the second Tuesday and not an additional. Could a resident of the town complain that you are violating the general bylaws of the town by not holding the entire town meeting on the single Tuesday and completing the business? Because section 1 of the general bylaws reads, the annual town meeting for the transaction of business shall be held on the second Tuesday in May. So could I, if that's how it read, could I, as a citizen, John, get up and make it, I'm not saying anybody would, but I'm just playing devil's advocate. Could I get up and make a stink about the fact that, oh, you don't want to get it all done on this one date, you're going to do it on another date. It's not in the bylaws that you can have it on another date. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's any because in any meeting held on a certain date, you always have the to continue the meeting.
Okay.
Which is what happens. Technically the thing that happens at the end of the first day is that the meeting is continued. It's not
Okay.
adjourned, it's just recessed. All right, the next question I have is on page 4.
Could I stay on?
Sure, go ahead.
I read this new recall.
Yeah,
amendment and I read through it and okay, you know, a lot of it made sense in the three-step process and I sort of get to it, but then I got sort of confused in the recall election. And I think it was about the language that if there's a recall, you can't be on the ballot. Okay, I guess as a replacement, I guess on a recall, I know in California, the recall, I'm assuming then maybe my thinking is wrong because they're going to vote and say yes or no. Do you want to recall the governor? If it's yes, then there's a list of people who do you want to replace the governor? And I guess that's what we're talking about. You can't be on the replacement list if in fact people vote to recall you. So anyway.
John,
Yeah.
this is Rich Stamaraki. Could I make a comment on that?
Yes, Rich.
Joe, you're actually absolutely correct. That's just saying that the person that is being recalled can't run in a new election. He can't replace himself again for that position.
Well, yeah, I figured that. It was just when I first sort of read it, you know, because I wasn't sure about the dynamics of the recall ballot. So, you know,
Right.
because you have to be on the ballot, but it's the question is first recall. So, thank you.
Okay.
So, okay,
Anything else on the recall portion?
no.
On page 4, I talk about the town meeting and special town meetings. And my overall thought process was this. Town meeting, our annual get together to talk about anything that needs to be done in the town the following year. Traditionally, and also just sort of by the weight of the work, has been a select board meeting and operation, and been a financial meeting and operation. But in our town, we have quite a few elected officials who are not members of the select board. And so the question I had in my mind is that what input do other elected officials have into what goes on at the town meeting? Now, and then I started looking at these items on warrants for in the section A on warrants, which talks about the annual town meeting, and then section B on warrants, which especially the section B on special town meetings, which talks about warrants. And I read them, and these kinds of things struck me. The sentence says that 10 voters registered in Granby may petition the select board asking for the insertion of an article in the warrant for the annual town meeting. If the petition is accepted, there shall be appended to the article the name of the first person signing the petition and the words "and others." The phrase that I have a question with is this. It's the phrase, "if the petition is accepted." And tell you what I think is a potential problem, is that what do we mean by the word accepted? In common meaning, but not necessarily legal meaning. Usually when you say that something's accepted, it means whoever takes that in basically embraces it and will agree to it. But I don't, and if that turns out to be the case, that the select board has to approve of this petition, that means that they have the absolute complete authority over what appears on the warrant article, and that no one else has any opportunity to put any warrant article on that the select board might disagree with. And so I had two questions, particularly two categories of people to look at. And the first primarily is this: other elected officials. Should we have in the warrant, first of all, should this be the case that other elected officials should be allowed to put a warrant article onto the warrant articles for a town meeting? And the second thing is that should there be a mechanism for citizens to be able to put a warrant article on? And in either case, would that warrant article have to be approved by the select board? And so I thought that, and then if you read down into the next section on special town meetings, there, when they talk about these petitions, they talk about the petitions being certified, not accepted. And certification is a clear process. Let's hold on for just a second. We'll take a break here for a minute, Joe. Want to take a break for a minute?
No, we don't. Gloria just waved to the crowd.
Okay. Hi, Gloria. Nice to see you.
Yeah, she's just limping around. She said she's okay, so, okay.
So in the next two sections, the word that I think is appropriate for the first section also is certified. And that just means that the town clerk certifies that all the signatures or enough signatures are on there that are real signatures, and that this is a valid petition. And if that word were changed, if the word accepted were changed to certified, like it is in the entire section B, then we'd be in a situation that, in fact, a group of 10 citizens could get a warrant article, something to be discussed and perhaps acted on at the town meeting without the approval of the select board. Means they could disagree with it entirely, but would in fact be a certified or another a legal petition. The second thing is that I think that because they're not 10 voters as elected officials, what I wonder is whether or not we should have another little section here that says that any elected official may have a warrant article placed on the warrant articles for the town meeting. So those are my two questions about the warrants, and but they come from this basic thinking that the town meeting is the meeting for us to decide a lot of things that need to be decided.
If I could speak up, I ran into this exact situation. I was trying to push for an electronic billboard for the town a couple of years ago, so I needed to get a number of signatures so I could get enough to then petition the select board, which is really petitioning Chris, and town administrator. And so it's a petition if you have 10 registered voters that have been validated by Kathy, and that is then submitted to the select board or the town administrator, as I like to say, and they decide whether that is included in the annual town meeting. But if I went out and I got 100 registered voters, and I didn't have time to try to do that, and again, the reason they put the name first person is whatever signature is on the first line of the first page is the person that is actually the person that's running the petition should actually sign the first line of every page to be safe. Okay, so that's what that's about. 100 registered voters, then at annual town meeting, okay, or at the next special town meeting, then they don't have the right to approve it, the select board. Automatically, this goes up before the citizens of town for vote. And if I got 200 certified signatures, then the town has to call an immediate special town meeting to vote specifically on that. So that's how it was going to work. I just went for the 10, you know, I got like 25 or something. I submitted it. And of course, Chris shot it down. But that was the minimum of 10 certified voters. So I've actually gone through this procedure once. I do agree with you that I think that any head of any elected official, because they're elected, should have the right to submit a warrant article. You know, now I don't know what kind of vetting process. We might want to have a vetting process, but if you're an elected official of the department, like I'm an elected official of the Housing Authority, of course, the Housing Authority has nothing to do with the town because it's part of DHCD for the state. You know, it's just that we have local policy authority, so we elect those people. But so I don't know if I would qualify, but if you're an elected official to any department, there should be some easier options for you to be able to have a warrant article submitted, because otherwise, you know, unless you go for the biggie, I mean, you got one person having absolute decision-making authority. I mean, you may say that it's a select board, okay, it's 3-1, and with the town administrator, I sort of look at all of them together as basically, you know, a single entity in town making all of those decisions unless you push hard and get the bigger petition. Okay, so I would agree, you know, at least I think that's what you were saying, John, you know, elected officials, so.
Except that, you know, if that word is changed, then that takes care of citizens. Would still need a second clause for other elected officials. If the word is not changed on citizens, then, I mean, there are still some ways to do this, which just create, I think, some absolute nightmares for the town. For example, if you had to go the route of 100 or 200, then you would force the issue to have to be brought to the town. If you could get 200 signatures and you got it, say, 45 days before the town meeting, and you submitted it 45 days before the town meeting, the bylaw says you have to call a special meeting within 45 days. So
Right.
you get a special meeting called, you know, 2 days before or 5 days before the town meeting, because this special petition came in. But it makes no sense to do that as a separate meeting rather than just have it on the annual town meeting. Plus, it becomes kind of a nightmare if what somebody is asking for in the petition, or what 200 people are asking for in the petition, is for something to be happening, something to be done and funded for the following fiscal year. Because those things really ought to all be taken care of at the annual town meeting, where you discuss all the stuff, or you try to discuss all the stuff that's supposed to be happening and funded for next year, basically your budget. So the only way to make sense of the budget process is by allowing, particularly things that are really budget matters, if someone wants to petition that, or a group of people want to petition that, to have a mechanism that can be brought up at the town meeting.
John, just one thing in what you said. If they were petitioning for something in next year's budget, it can't be voted on at a special town meeting until you get into the new fiscal year, unless it's at the annual town meeting.
Yeah, and the situation that arises is that suppose, for example, Board of Health wants to buy a pickup truck. They've never needed a pickup truck before, but suppose for some reason they think they needed a pickup truck, like so many other departments do.
You're gonna go around and collect mosquitoes.
Yeah. The process that you go through to get the budget added to is a process we go through every spring. Every spring, the budget is completed by all the stuff that wasn't thought about or was being pushed off until spring special town meeting, which we didn't have this year. But so suppose the second week in July, we have a special town meeting called to vote on a pickup truck. Well, then you have to not only suggest what the article is that you want passed, you have to suggest a funding source. And the funding source becomes awkward. In most every year, not in every year, but most every year, by the end of the year, by the time it rolls around, it turns out that we have free cash. It hasn't happened every year, but in most years. The amount is unknown when we start the year. And free cash will be there, but you can't really tap into free cash until it's actually been certified. And the reason for having a truck may be something which is required really during the summer months. You're probably going to capture more mosquitoes in the summer months than you are in January and February, after free cash is certified. So it really means that the mechanism of government can act at its worst by absolutely forbidding a topic to be brought up in the time frame in which it should be brought up to be discussed by the people. It's government by basically cutting off the voice of the people. And I'm just opposed to that philosophically myself. I do recognize certain safeguards have to be in place, but I think that in the small town, we have the safeguards, and that it would be very worthwhile to put something in here to make sure that things like that can in fact be brought into the budget discussions.
So if somebody gets a little ornery and they have a bunch of friends that are ornery and they get together on social media and
Yeah.
50 petitions come in for articles on the annual town meeting from the same 11 people signing every one of the petitions. You now have a town meeting that would have 50 articles. That to me is unworkable.
Well, it's not, because you'd have to do that at a special town meeting. And the fact that.
Yeah, but they're gonna end up having to get more signature.
No,
Well, if you get 100 signatures,
First of all-
then you're, sorry, John, if you can get 100 signatures right now under this bylaw, and I see where these exceptions, John, but maybe this is the way to work it. If you get that 100 signatures of registered voters, that warrant that you're requesting now goes on the town meeting. But
no.
yes, it does. Yes, it does. Okay. If the select board are presented with a certified petition bearing the names of at least 100 registered voters requesting town meeting action on one or more matters, said matters shall be inserted on the next, called special town meeting. But if there's no special town meeting, then it's already been called on the next called, okay? It already has to be there. If it isn't there, that's gonna have to go to the annual meeting. That's
No.
how it was explained to me,
No.
okay? Because it's the next called meeting. Whereas if you get 200 votes, then you have to call a special town meeting just to address this warrant article.
Now, here's the way this works. Suppose that 45 days before the annual town meeting, you've got 100 signatures. And you give it to the select board. Select board does not have to accept that for the annual town meeting. They can say, we accept this, and the next time that there's a special town meeting, we'll discuss that. It'll be on the warrant. And if the next time that they call the town meeting is the following September, sure enough, it'll be there, but it has nothing to do by that time with what it was that you wanted a meeting for.
Okay, so let's eliminate special.
And if you get 200 signatures, then they say, yeah, okay, you do not get to put this on the annual town meeting. We will call a special town meeting within 45 days for these 11 articles that you want to do, but they do not have to put it on the annual town meeting. This is really the difference between the annual town meeting and special town meeting, and the fact that certain things can be accomplished at the annual town meeting, mostly around the budget and monetary matters, that are much harder to do at a special town meeting. And
So
I,
maybe,
that's right
yeah,
now,
so-
suppose that you do, excuse me, let me finish with Bob's point. Suppose in fact that you've got 11 ornery people and they have 20 articles that they would like to get funded for next year. And they get the signatures and it has to go on the annual town meeting. That's okay. Because remember, the annual town meeting starts on the second Tuesday in May, but you can have as many sessions of the special, you can have as many sessions of the annual town meeting as you want. So you could schedule the regular stuff like you really do on the first day of the meeting. Second day of the meeting, you could discuss the budget items like we regularly do, and then you could put off the third piece of it till you hit sometime in the end of June, middle of June, or whatever is appropriate. It does not have to all be on the same day,
okay, so based on your,
but not the same day.
okay, based on your recommendation, what I would do is under warrants, I would have 10 as one, then take 1 and 2 from special town meeting and move them up and call them 2 and 3 under warrants. And then just change the language so that it doesn't, to eliminate the word special. So that way it would coincide with what you're suggesting, John. Now, we would still need to say under what circumstances special town meetings would be called, because if you get 200 voters and guess what, you just had annual town meeting 45 days ago, and now you've got something that everybody thinks is critical that was omitted from the budget, unless we have a special town meeting thing and leave it in there with the 200 voters or something, they're going to have to wait 10 months just to get it addressed. And then the other issue that we always face is, oh, hey, I don't have to tell you how to write the warrant article, so we accept it. And most of the people who do this have never done a warrant article. So now they're not sure if they can do it. And then guess what? We get up in town meeting and, oh, technical violation, the wording, is incorrect. We're kicking this request out of the annual town meeting. And now you got to go through the same stuff to get to it next year and just make sure that you did your language right. So part of my challenge on that process is because there's nobody, unless you've written a warrant article that is actually accepted before, any of these citizens basically aren't sure how to properly word it. So it's just sort of take a guess.
Well,
There should be some,
Fine with me. I don't object to that at all. I think that's a good thing. I think people who want things done should find out we're a town of laws, and I think people should find out how to do things in a legal fashion. And
right, but we don't have a resource to do that, John.
well,
There's
sure,
no help from town hall.
you can hire a lawyer, or you can recruit someone who's had the experience of it to see if they agree with your petition. That's all fine. That's all the correct procedures. You can't have a group of people saying, all right, guess what? We're calling our own town meeting for next Thursday. And next Thursday, we're going to vote and we're going to pass a budget for the town. You just can't do that. That's not the way to do it. There are procedures that are set up here that are reasonable for doing it. But what I think is this, is that the special town meeting section needs to be kept here as it is, pretty much unchanged except for a couple of possibilities, because we do in fact need to know how to call special town meetings. The warrant articles under warrant articles as a warrant article for the annual town meeting, that's where I think if we want to do something different, we have to specifically do it under the section A, because it's section A is restricted really to the annual town meeting. And I'm not saying that 10 people is the appropriate number. It could be the 100 people that are involved in the second one, some other number. But I think just something so that there is a mechanism so that townspeople under the appropriate legal forms can get something put on the warrant if they really feel it's necessary.
My opinion is that this town meeting is not going to be the time to get into this discussion.
Well, but that's when this bylaw thing is scheduled for.
No, you,
This is the bylaw warrant article at the town meeting. I agree that this should be a separate meeting on bylaws, but it's, the bylaw discussion is set for the town meeting.
okay, maybe I'm getting confused now. Be more specific in what you're suggesting we talk about. Because I think that we're getting into something that is just gonna, we've been at this for what, 20, 25 minutes? 3
Yeah.
people?
Yeah.
Imagine what would happen if you got 200 people sitting in everybody has their own opinion. So it's something that needs to get hashed out before you get on town meeting floor.
Yes, that's what, when I wrote to the bylaw committee and I talked with the town moderator, I made it clear that I didn't want any surprises for any of them to come up at this meeting. Things that I'm thinking about, I did not believe should be a surprise at the meeting. And so I've committed to getting in touch with them and discussing this and explaining what problems might be and what solutions might be before we ever get to town meeting. And if that group of people agrees with this, then the thing will go a lot smoother. If they don't agree with it, then I think we have to just be prepared for the discussion.
Well, well, no, there's another alternative. You can't get your way right now. You can maybe get your way next year.
Okay, I
Well,
think,
but that's why I'm not thinking of this as my way, because I don't think that these questions that I have are my personal individual questions. I mean, I've never submitted an article for a town
All
warrant.
right, but John, tell me what it is we're talking about, okay? We've talked about elected officials, we talked about certification, we talked about approval, and I don't know what we're centering in on.
I think we went for the under warrant articles. I think we went 2 clauses. First clause would read as it is, except the 10 might be 100 instead of 10 voters registered by petition. And if the petition is certified, then it appears on the warrant article for the annual town meeting. Second thing is that any elected official may submit an article to be included on the warrant for the annual town meeting. So that the first section A just changes to those 2 things.
Okay, let me go to the second one, the elected officials.
Yeah.
If you're gonna do that, I think Joe was saying vetting, and I'll consider that this is vetting. The elected official should only have the authority to submit an article relative to the operation of his or her department.
Good.
Okay,
Correct.
because otherwise they'll take the place of whatever
Right.
number of people you have.
Very good.
okay, yeah, that language should be Bob, I was actually assuming that, but you're right, you gotta spell it out, so, okay.
And what about 100 people versus 10 people?
Well, if
Fif-
it's 100 people and it's certified, then it should have to be put on there, you know?
If
Well,
it's 100
this-
certified, we know what the answer is.
Well, you
Uh,
also have it under special, right now, what they've done is they've said, okay, we're gonna make it easy for voters to bring it to us, you only need 10 signatures, but it's in our purvey. And so if you really notice in special town meetings, I don't even know that a special town meeting's been called because somebody got 200 signatures on something. I'd have to
I
ask.
think I remember one, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, these situations rarely happen, but what we want to encourage, but the problem, I understand why they want 10 voters to leave it at their discretion, because maybe we went through a hard budget period, cycle, but we got the budget together and now, here comes somebody, man. I mean, just 10 people, but if I don't have discretion for that, I have no control. But if I have 100 voters and I've certified that, then they should be forced to put that on the annual town meeting because it's more meaningful, because there's enough voters that have said, yeah, we should at least talk about this and address it and vote on it. So,
Well, first of all, I I do not know what the bylaw committee intended here. For example, I don't know if they intended for the word accepted to be what the word certified means, as is another things. If they intended it to be certified, then, and if they think 10 is the appropriate number, then that's fine with me. I don't have a question about that. That's really immaterial. From my point of view, the philosophical issue is whether or not there is some number of people who can have a petition put onto the warrant if it's certified. If they think 10 was appropriate, that's fine. If they think 100 is appropriate, like it's down in Secretary, that's all right with me too. It's just something needs to be done so it can get on the annual town meeting.
Okay, I would make one last suggestion, and that would be if you're gonna talk back to the bylaws folks, give Kathy Kelly a call. I mean, she's been in that position so long, she would handle any of those requests, certify, and maybe review with her the language that you're anticipating, John, and then, because she at least knows how it operates. Now, the question, Bob, is this how we really want it to operate? I mean, that's another question, but I'm not sure we're really in a position to do more than maybe clean it up a little bit and give some options,
Right, that's all I'm suggesting.
If you're dealing with a warrant for the annual town meeting.
Yep.
And you make it at 100 and certified. All right, then you're in line with if to call it, to have it on the next special town meeting. I mean, same process.
Right.
I don't think I'm.
But you don't have to call a special town meeting. That doesn't go on.
That's not the issue, Joe. What I'm saying is it's a similar process. All right. Do they have to call a special town meeting? No. But if there's going to ever be one, it's going to be there. But if I don't think I'm in favor of saying 10 people approved or 10 people, the way it is. I am in favor of the way it is there right now. In other words, with only 10 people making a request, I think it's fine for the selectmen to say, no, you can't have it, or yes, you can have it. If people want to do it, get 100 signatures. That's not unheard of.
Okay, so we should just be able to eliminate the thing about 10 voters.
Well, they do.
The selectmen don't the selectmen don't need any signatures to put something on the warrant article.
No.
So there's really no point in talking about that if they don't need anything. If it's just an accepted
No,
or not.
but yeah, but what they're saying here is that here are voters independently submitting a warrant article that nobody else is submitting. And with 10 voters, if the petition's accepted, so the selectmen said, well, do we want to allow this on the town meeting and put this warrant article in? We vote no. Okay, it's no. If you go certified, it has to be addressed. It can't be an up and down vote by the select board. It has to be an up and down vote by the residents that who attend the town meeting.
Let me put it another way. 100 certified signatures, it goes on the town meeting. 1 certified signature, it's up to the select board. If they want to put it on, they put it on. If they don't want to put it on, they don't put it on. 1 through 99, and that doesn't need to be said because that's the way it is with anything. The select board have the decision-making process for under 100. And whether that's 0 people asking for it.
Correct.
Actually, they only need 2 votes. They only need 2 signatures to get it.
Right.
It's them.
Well, no.
I'll tell you what
Well,
worries me.
Here they're saying at least you had to go around and get 10 friends in town. So
I'm worried that if 10 people can get something out of the town meeting warrant, that you're opening yourself up to some frivolous articles.
Right, I agree.
Well, Well, we're open right now, so John,
No,
when
we're
you,
not.
if you talk to Kathy, she'll tell you what reality has actually been, because I always like to go back and look at reality, sort of like security, oh man, crime right, well, have we had a crime here? No. Has anybody been mugged in the last 35 years? No, but, oh, we got to worry about the potential, so now we got to put cameras on everybody. I
I
had
tell you, I
that.
can't remember too many coming from the 13 years I was down there.
Yeah, well, that's what it's all about now. So anyway, okay, well, whatever you want to do in terms of language, I think we've talked it through. I do think the 100 certified registered voter for the warrant article at the annual town meeting is a good thing. So anyway,
The, on section B2, and in contrast to section B1. In
Mhm.
section 1, you need the 100 voters and you request town meeting action on one or more matters. In section 2, they seem to have left that out, and it must be inadvertent, because as section 2 reads, you get 200 people together, you can demand a town meeting and you don't have to say why. You don't need to have it, you don't need to say that you want town meeting action on one or more matters. You just want a town meeting.
well, you're right. That's a mistake.
So they
Okay?
that's gotta be added back in there.
Yes, yes.
On section C, about halfway down the section, it has the word annual town report. That is incorrect. The annual town report is the one that's done on an annual reporting basis and comes out, report's got to be in by December 31st, and then they publish it sometime in the early spring. What
Right.
is supposed to be is the annual town meeting booklet. And
Okay,
that's referenced later on under the budget section.
okay.
On another kind of odd thing, under the select board, at the end of the select board section, which is section 9, it's on page 7 of the new bylaws. They have a section on the authority to appoint the town administrator. And it's 2 sentences. In the next section on the town administrator, the first sentence is repeated. And on the second section under town administrator, the second sentence is not repeated, but it's basically just rephrased and given again. And the way I read these, the first sentence under the authority to appoint town administrator belongs under the select board section. It gives the select board the ability to appoint, according to law, a town administrator. The second sentence is really part of the description of what the town administrator job is, and is really covered under town affairs on the second section. Whereas the first section under town administrator appointment talks about the select board again. It doesn't talk about anything having to do with town administrator. It talks about the select board. So that really shouldn't be there at all. Now, can you be unnecessarily redundant by putting in a stray paragraph here and there, or places where it doesn't really belong? Yeah, sure, I guess you can, but it doesn't seem to make sense to me to do that.
I don't know. It makes sense to me.
The
Because
town
we're talking
administrator-
about that position, so how does a person get in that position by
Yeah,
the
that's-
select board for 3 years?
Yeah, but
And then I would just might say the standing town administrator may be appointed for successive terms of office, I guess. I don't know. But anyway,
the appointment section belongs with the select board. It does not belong with the town administrator.
Well,
Well, actually, there's nothing wrong with most of the sentence on the, or the paragraph on the appointment. It's just having it be the Board of Selectmen, or the Select Board, excuse me. That's the part. I mean, it would not be wrong to say the town administrator is appointed pursuant to Mass General Law, blah, 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 blah.
right, right.
That would be perfectly okay and probably should be there.
Yeah, that
It's-
one should
it's
be
the
there.
part about the selectmen appointing him that maybe should be back in the selectmen section.
And is.
And it is in the selectmen section?
Yeah, section 9, the previous page, section 9.
Yeah, I don't have it. Read it to me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, the last.
Yeah, I got it. Section 9, right, right. It's
That's where
it's
it is under,
the same first sentence.
and basically the same
Second
second.
sentence.
And I think the second sentence does belong with the town administrator. It describes what the town
Yeah.
administrator does. But the first thing on appointment is specific to the select board. It has nothing to do.
Well, I would agree with Bob. The town administrator shall be appointed pursuant to MGL, Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 108, for a term not to exceed 3 years, et cetera. The town administrator may be appointed for successive terms. So you just substitute the town administrator shall be appointed. Because they're
Why?
not appointing, right,
Why?
right at the front.
Why?
Why? Because that's describing the fact that the town administrator is appointed. It may be redundant, but it fits there because it's telling you how the person, how the person is appointed or by what authority. So that's Mass General Law, Chapter 41. Okay, it tells you the term. Okay, and then
No,
it just reiterates that the administrator can be, it should be, say, reappointed for successive terms of office is what I
and the
would do.
description of the finance committee then be changed, and the first sentence read, the finance committee shall be appointed by so-and-so and such and such, this procedure.
Well, if you want to eliminate the select board, look,
I don't want to look.
personally, I understand what it says. Number two, is
Well,
there
you
any
should-
legal issue that we would run into if we didn't get the language modified? I don't believe so. So, anyway.
There in section 3 under appointment authority.
Yep.
You read it right in the middle of it. Town administrator shall appoint so and so and so, the town council and special councils. And it's the word special councils.
Mm-hmm.
Now, go back a few pages. Go back to the select board, section 5. Select board section 5 reads as follows. Authority to appoint town special counsel. The select board, acting as town agents, shall have the authority to appoint and employ a special town council to act on behalf of the town and its various officers, committees, and boards if it becomes necessary.
Okay,
Yeah.
I would be in a position, because it also goes to my concern about checks and balances, but certainly I agree, we should eliminate special town councils from, you can appoint a special counsel, I guess, because it could be related to some administrative thing, but generally a special town council means there's something else going on usually, to me anyway. So I would just eliminate special town councils from that section.
I don't think you can. You've got to have the ability to appoint a special town council. Someone does.
Yeah, the select board has that authority under section 5.
Oh, all right. You're just taking it out of,
I'm just taking it out. I'm not giving them dual authority. I'm saying that right now, authority to appoint town special counsel, the select board acting as town agents. So that gives them the authority to do it. And then over here, we're also giving the town administrator the authority to do it. I would vest it in one or the other. I would vest it in the select board.
All right, well, let me bring up something here. At this point, I'm not necessarily suggesting that either of these be eliminated. I just want to be clear as to what they mean, but because here's a couple things to think about. The select board does not have the authority to appoint the town council. The bylaws say that the town administrator has the authority to appoint the town council. So there's no conflict there, that it's the town administrator that does it, and the select board does not have that authority under the bylaws. But I think you need a mechanism in town that if the select board wants to investigate the town administrator, or if the town administrator wants to investigate the select board, how do those things happen if the only relation between the two of them is completely intertwined? So you need some mechanism for that to be able to happen. So it could be okay that they each have these authorities, but I think the town people ought to know if there's something else which is being discussed, which we don't know about. I mean, I don't know. I can't think of other situations where you would have the select board saying, we want to appoint a special counsel, and the town administrator says, no, we're not going to do that.
If you give them both authority, that will happen. So you got to give one the authority or the other.
Well, no, you need them both to have the authority in case they want to invest, in case something needs to be investigated about the other one. But I don't know how to do that unless it's spelled out more explicitly. I don't know what they have.
Okay, yeah. We'll call Governor Baker, okay? No, he'll weigh in. I don't know how to do either, John.
I'd like to hear what the reasoning behind this is, and I wonder whether or not the town should hear what the reasoning behind this is, because
Right.
there's an apparent conflict here, but you got to resolve it one way or the other.
Well, I don't remember the history, but who appointed, in other governmental areas, who appoints special town councils and special councils? Is it usually it's the elected officials of the town, isn't it? It's just not some administrator.
I don't have the current bylaws in front of me, so I don't know.
Well, I'm just talking about other town, like in Boston, or
The bylaw committee probably knows they did a tremendous amount of work looking at a lot of bylaws in the town. No, that's what I'm just saying, that I think the town should know what this means.
okay.
I think the select board and the town administrator should know what it means.
Say as an example, planning board needs someone, or who is going to be the one to appoint them? The selectmen say no, and the town administrator says yes. I mean, there needs to be some sort of a clear-cut answer as to when each one would exercise their authority. And I don't think you'd want to have it say that the selectmen can appoint a special counsel if they want to investigate the TA. I mean, you don't want that in the bylaw. And you don't want it in the other way either. So,
yeah.
So one of them needs to be in charge most of the time, and the other one, I don't know how you word it.
Yeah, it's very difficult. I mean, you really hate to put in something that says the select board can appoint a special town council if the town administrator needs to be investigated, or some matter of town administrator.
No, you can't.
You really can't do that, I don't think. I mean, you don't.
You got a better chance on that one than you do in the other one.
Yeah.
If you're narrowing their
administrator
appointing
can
authority.
do it if he wants to investigate the board of selectmen.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, okay.
The
Maybe we talk to another town. Do you know anybody in other towns? I mean, they must have the same kind of conflict. Or maybe because if you're a mayoral system, maybe it's different, I guess. I don't know.
I don't know. I think that question should be asked.
Okay,
I mean, think, I think, I think we, and I think any citizen and taxpayer in town has a right to ask, if we're voting on passing these as the bylaws of the town, what do they mean?
yep, I agree.
Okay, I would say that's enough for tonight.
Okay.
Probably more
We
than.
have-
Probably more than enough. Probably was enough about a half hour ago.
Yeah, well, okay. Are we gonna be doing this again? Is it Wednesday night?
Yeah, let me leave it. Let me leave the meeting on for Wednesday night, and I may have
Are we
more.
gonna- Then we'll pick up on the bylaws, right?
We'll pick up on Wednesday will be the intention there. I think because we've had so little controversy within the committee on the budget itself that the actual vote on the budget should go pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And Bob, do you have a different opinion on that?
Pardon?
I think that, do you have a different opinion? Than the vote on the actual budget should go pretty quickly because we haven't really had any disagreements.
I think we'll probably have some talking on the school budget.
Yeah,
On
but
the other
John, after looking at your spreadsheet, and I go to the FinCom, the power, I mean, I guess we look at the numbers, I'm looking at going, so we have the power of $500,000.
John, if you're talking with Chris, there was a new warrant article that came up. And it's to rescind the, I'm going to say, remaining appropriation authority, and maybe you can put the word borrowing authority in there from the East Meadow School. Or the new school.
Yeah,
Just
okay.
why out of the blue? I mean, are there any implications to it or not?
Well, would it mean, for example, that someone couldn't present an article at town meeting to spend, let's say, another $2 million on the school budget for next year and fund it by using our borrowing authority of what's left over because we didn't spend all the borrowing authority to build East Meadow?
No. No, because that isn't part of the authority was to spend it for the construction of a school. You wanted to put a $2 million addition on it,
Okay.
you can make a case, but not for the actual school budget.
Okay,
Okay.
if I could,
Suppose you wanted to add a $2 million playground to the school.
Yeah, that could maybe be done.
Yeah.
okay, well, here's what I know from my grandson going to East Meadow, is that there is a classroom crunch, and there's been a debate going back and forth, also because Jim Petros, who was on that board, is on the Housing Authority, and we've talked about some of this. And the issue was, we don't have enough classrooms for the class sizes, and this is why I always bring up the choice issue. Are we being forced for more rooms because we're relying on choice? So the solution is to move sixth graders to the junior, senior high school, but there's an issue because of development and you're not quite puberty yet and all of this. And so there's these debates about whether we should now throw sixth graders to the eighth graders or, whatever over there and move that to the school because we need 2 more classrooms. And there had been some discussion about what do we do? We don't like that. Could we, I know that, I don't know how far it got, but I know that some people had talked at some point about, hey, let's add on to the school, to
Well, I
solve the
think
classroom problem.
I think the 6th grade issue got approved and then disapproved.
Yeah.
In other words,
But
at one
maybe
point,
that's why they're closing it down because there were discussions like this that could you know, the
It could-
borrowing authorities there, and then you could just get a whole bunch of parent support and boom. Hey, well, we said we were gonna spend 35 million or whatever it was, and we only spent this, and so,
Well, yeah, but the school can't do it. It would have to be an approval by whoever had the
no.
authority to begin with.
no, I don't
But-
disagree with any of that. There would have to be all those things, but certainly I could see the school being able to get 100 registered voters to put a warrant article on the town meeting to be able to vote to do an addition, because we already have this funding, and they could rationalize it to people that, well, we've got this option, we only spend X, let's go spend Y. So
Oh, yeah.
that's all.
except-
I just think it's,
I know, but the original spending authority delegated it to the control of somebody. John, you were on the committee. You remember? Did Chris Martin have the authority, or was it the Board of Selectmen, or was it the committee that signed off?
I thought it was a,
I don't remember.
You didn't put your signature on anything.
Well, I don't know. We may have voted something.
Yeah.
That was a
Okay,
while
well,
ago.
you could have authorized somebody to do it.
Usually formalities. So,
do you want me to call Jim Petrus over the next
No.
day or so and?
No,
ask
because I don't
questions?
imagine he has anything to do with this.
No, but he was on the back, some of those committees. He went back on the school committee. And he
Yeah.
was more intimately involved in everything than people realize.
yeah,
So,
no, I'll find out. I'll find out.
okay. But I can call Jim Petrus if you want me to.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
All right, anything else?
Meeting minutes, if you had a
Minutes?
chance
Okay.
to look at them. And if
I'll
you
take-
didn't, it only takes about a minute to look at them.
Yeah. Well, I'll take a motion to approve them.
I guess I'll make the motion.
Okay, and I'll second it.
Second it.
Any discussions on them?
No?
Then all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, well then, I'll hope to see everybody back here on Wednesday evening at 6:30. We'll have either a short meeting or a long meeting.
Okay.
And but everybody try very hard to be here on Thursday evening.
No, I'll be here.
Okay.
No, my wife had a late therapy session, and we had to start, and, and I walked in, there was your message, then you're calling me on my other line, John, as I'm moving my wife into the bedroom. Anyway,
Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn. We have a motion to adjourn
So
yeah,
move.
and second,
second,
all in favor?
aye.
See you later in the week.
8:21.
Good
Yep.
evening.
Good evening.